Hey, what's up? I love Kidmin. Good morning. Welcome to the Daily Coffee Chat with Ryan Frank. I'd love to get your questions. Text those questions to 833-792-6372. You see that number right there, 833-792-6372. I'm going to be joined in a few minutes by the David Laflin. It's going to be so fun. We tried to do this on Friday, and Facebook or Zoom, one of them, they just weren't talking to each other. We tried for like 15 minutes and unfortunately had to abort and reschedule. So glad you're here. If you're watching on the Ryan Frank Facebook page or I Love Kidmin Facebook group, just want to thank you for being here. I was on I Love Kidmin this morning, as I do almost every morning and throughout the day. Just amazed at you all, this group. I know I'm a little biased, but I think this is one of the best online communities for children's ministry. I Love Kidmin. So thank you for being here. I made an announcement last night about a new game on I Love Kidmin, and I'm going to show you that game in just a minute. First of all, want to give you a quick heads up about some things that are coming this week in the coffee chat. Today we're going to be joined by David Lafin. Already told you that. Tomorrow we've got a great lineup of kids pastors from the community that I've asked them to jump on board, and we're going to talk about summer plans and comeback. We're going to have later on this week Jonathan Banks. Can't wait to talk to you more about Jonathan. Jonathan is a great children's pastor up in Chicago. On Friday, Kurt Broadbeck. Kurt is the family pastor at one of the fastest growing churches in Indiana. And he's going to talk about something for you that you might want to participate in this summer that's entirely free. I'm excited for you to hear from Kurt. Chris Smole is going to be joining us on Friday as well. She is a children's pastor in Appleton, Wisconsin. We've got a great lineup for the coffee chat. If you're just logging in, thank you. Andy has sent me a link so that I can see y'all on my phone. So I'm going to click that link right now. Thank you, Andy. There you are. All right. Good morning, April. Good morning, Uncle Charlie. So glad that you are here. Welcome to today's coffee chat. Hey, I want to brag up the co-host of the I Love Kidmin podcast and a frequent visitor in the daily coffee chat, and that is Corey Jones. Corey has a new game on kidsmatter.com. He has several new games. This is the newest game. Look at the screen. Right. It's called Family Quarantine Olympics. So I'm going to click it here. And this is so fun. He said he has been doing this game at his church. And what you can do is you can use this in your Zoom. You can use it in your next pre-recorded children's ministry service. You can also, these are come in different versions, but one of the options, you download slides or images. So you can share these with your families for at-home challenges. This is so cool. Children's additional points can be given. Then they get to activities like social distancing challenge. Here's another one. Pocket size challenge. Fall quiz challenge. A lot of fun. There are all these different challenges that kids and families can do at home, and then some of them give the kids an advantage over mom and dad, which I think is pretty awesome. So go check that out. Also, one of our best sellers the last 2 weeks have been these two games right here, Make It or Break It Volume 1 and Make It or Break It Volume 2. Here's how this game works. Take a look at your screen. Kids are going to vote. First one is or break it. They can make it or break it on your phone. He broke it. All right, let's do one or two more just for fun. Make it or break it. Remember, somebody's telling me you can't see the game playing. Okay, let's try this again. I think I know the problem. Andy, thank you for the text. Okay, let me do something here. I think I need to stop sharing my screen and then start sharing my screen again. Okay, give me 1 second. I'll only do one of these. Thank you, Andy, for the heads up. Okay. So now I'm going to share my screen. And I need to pick a different. Yep, I figured it out now, Andy. Okay, thank you. Here we go. Now you should be able to see it. All right, let's do this. Okay, he's gonna break it. Broke it. Okay, let's do one more. And okay, good. I think you could hear that. Let's do this one. This time, this will be fun. I like this one. I like them all. Okay, let's try this one. Make it or break it. All these are at kidsmatter.com. All right, very good. Hey, I wanted you to see a couple of those things. Big shout out to Corey Jones. He's got a lot of cool stuff on Kids Matter. If you're creating cool stuff for your children's ministry, I want to know about it. David Lafin, some of his stuff, who you're going to hear from a minute ago, is on Kids Matter as well. Oh, wow. How do you introduce David Lafin? David Lafin is a dear friend. David Lafin is one of those people that I know I could call at midnight or 2 a.m. And if he heard his phone ring, he would take my call. And him and Teesha are dear friends of Beth and I. We have known each other for, oh my word, I don't know how long. David, come on, jump on here with me. David and I actually first met, I was introduced to the Laflin family because I met David's dad at Children's Pastors Conference, Dwayne Laflin. What's up, David?
Hey, Ryan, good to be with you today.
How many years ago did we first meet?
And I don't know, I was thinking it was at least 2004 or so out in Grove City, Ohio for one of
at a Carl Bastion event?
At least that, yeah.
At least.
You know, for sure we were there. If not, you know, like you said, probably at one of those children's pastors conferences long, long ago.
Man, what were we, like 16 years old back then?
Somewhere in there.
Yeah, so I went to my first children's pastors conference as a young children's pastor. Got somebody in my church to pay my way because the church didn't have a budget to send people to conferences. So I went to a senior citizen in my church. Senior citizens are great people to go to when you've got a big idea. And I said, hey, would you consider sponsoring me to go to children's pastor conference? I went. And I remember going to a workshop on using gospel illusions with kids. And I met your dad, Dwayne Laflin.
Yeah.
And he taught several workshops. I remember going and buying some gospel illusions from him. And man, I haven't seen your dad in a long time. How are your mom and dad doing?
Man, they're doing good. They still are, you know, just vagabonds in some ways. They were in Branson, Missouri. They just moved to Pennsylvania to help start a theater there. And that was when everything hit with the quarantine. So they decided, well, they bought a building over in Michigan to start setting that up for 2 or 3 years down the road. So they're driving back and forth, and
Are they really?
yeah, they're as busy as ever.
Oh, my
So good for
word.
them. Yeah.
Now, when you were a kid, did your dad do a lot of what you did, like travel to different churches and do shows and do ministry? Is that what he did as a kid?
Yes and no. It's actually not as much as a lot of people think. So when I was growing up, my dad was a pastor. And
Okay.
so as a pastor, we started in our church was really small, about 35 people. And over
Yeah.
the 7 or so years we were there, it grew to over 1,000. But in those early years, it was basically, my mom and dad had to do everything, right? I know a lot of people in the I Love Kidmin group can relate to that, where you are the talent, you are the teacher, you prepare the crafts, you do it all. And so my dad at vacation Bible schools and things like that, he would be the guy that would get up there and lead music, and he would do a couple tricks. So I was around that a little bit. When I was about 14 is when my parents started kind of moving into that as a full-time thing. So I was in middle school and into high school when they started traveling, and I had 2 older sisters. And so really in the summer, we'd go on the road with them a lot, but the rest of the time we weren't as much. So yes, we got a chance to go and visit churches and be a part of some things, but it wasn't kind of the livelihood that I knew growing up, so to speak.
I didn't know that. So did you as a kid, or I didn't really tell you I was going to get into your childhood and stuff, did I? So when you were a kid, a preteen, did you think did you have an interest in magic tricks like your dad did, and think like, I think I might want to do this as an adult, be a magician?
I'd say no at that point, because part of it was because my dad was really a full-time pastor who did some little tricks. Okay. I had no idea that was like, something you could do, I guess.
Okay.
Growing up, like I was really into sports and things like that. So I was always playing a different sport. And then in the summer, we'd go to different conferences. You and I were talking about how long we knew each other. I remember, Yancey and I, when we were probably 7 or 8 years old, were at the same conferences running around when our dads were teaching things. And so we'd go to those kind of things and learn some tricks. And so I'd get super excited about it for a week or two. And then I'd go back home and, football season would start or soccer season would start. And I wouldn't do anything until the next summer when we went back to those conferences. So it was always fun, but I just had other interests. I was never one of those kids that was like, this is my thing.
Okay. Yeah. Whenever I promise to this day, and I don't do magic tricks a ton, but I do when I teach kids. I bet probably every third time I teach kids, I use some kind of an illusion or trick or something.
Yeah.
And I promise that to this day, if I ever use a silk, almost every time I use a silk, I think about your dad, because in that children's pastors conference, I remember him talking about how if you're going to use silks, you want to make sure that they're not wrinkled, and you want to make sure that they don't look like they've been wadded up in a bag. He said that, I don't know, to this day, I promise, if I'm going to use a silk in a change bag, I think about your dad in that silk and making sure it doesn't look wadded up. Isn't that random?
It is. But, it's funny because there's always those little moments that, ultimately what that's teaching you is like, hey, don't just, hodgepodge things together, like pay attention and do it with excellence. And it's funny, those things that one way or another people teach us that.
It is.
Yeah, I totally get it.
I love it. So David, a lot of people know you from MegaCon, from your ministry. I know you travel, you and Teesha, you get around to a lot of churches. God has really given you a great platform to help ministries all around the world, literally. And maybe, I don't know if we'll have an opportunity to talk about your trip that you guys took this past summer, but for someone watching right now, or someone who's going to watch this later today, and they don't know David and Teesha Laflin, tell us about your family, tell us about your ministry. Take us behind the scenes a little bit.
Yeah, you got it. Well, basically we are illusionists. And so what that means is that I like to do things with random little objects, right? But I help people understand that it's just an illusion. For example, you might look at this ball and say, hey, that's a red ball. But if you look again, you might think it's not a red ball. Maybe it's something totally different. Ooh. But of course, I explain it's just an illusion. Now for us, you were asking about how these things kind of started. We actually had both graduated college, my wife Teesha and I. We quit our jobs and went to India to do mission work. And then I started pulling out those tricks I had when I was a kid, just because we didn't speak the language. And we're like, we got to do something to connect with these people and break the ice. And people would come from all around, and we show them those tricks and they'd be captivated. And then we would use different illusions that actually give a message. And so now, I mean, that's kind of been what we continue to do. For us, it started as a ministry tool. Like you said, you do these things, and especially, you know, kids are always, we need to get their attention. And so when you bring out a trick or an illusion, or when I put a ball in my hand and it changes colors, now they're watching. And so now that I have their attention, I can communicate. And some of them, just like what I did, are just for fun, just to get their attention. But then we also give a message with those things. So we had quit our jobs, went to India for a couple months and came back and had no idea what was next. We lived in my wife's parents' basement for a while.
Every man's dream right there.
Every man's dream, exactly. Exactly.
Yep.
So, we started actually going to some conferences. We went to a CPC back in maybe 2002. And I think at that time, it was just because we were kind of praying, you know, what's next? And we had thought about, do we go on staff at a church? Do we do those kind of things? We went to CPC, shared a little bit about what we do. And then, you know, Dale Von Sagan, who passed away a little over a year ago, he ran One Way Street Puppets, and they did events throughout the country. Well, Dale, in kind of typical Dale fashion, called and said, hey, I hear you're not doing anything right now. So would you go to all these conferences with us? So we went to about 12 different conferences across the country and did their puppet themes, but also did some illusions. And then that kind of,
I didn't know you did that.
Yeah, that's really what made things happen for us. We really at that time had no idea what we were going to do.
Yeah.
But Dale kind of last minute said, you should bring some sort of business card. So we went to Staples and got those little perforated business cards.
That's awesome.
People started saying, hey, can you come back and do our fall
You're
festival?
talking about the business cards like you'd run through your inkjet printer?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Like the
my word. Yeah.
And like tore them out, and
That's
people,
awesome.
I guess, picked them up, and yeah, come back and be our VBS closing event or whatever it might be. And we, for another year, were just kind of like painting houses and asking God what was next. And finally, we're like, maybe we should be more intentional about this.
Yeah.
So yeah, but it started with missions, and that's still what we do. We love to, Teesha and I have led mission teams all over the country, or all over the world, I should say. And like you were saying, this past January, we took our 4 kids with us who are now 11, 9,
Yeah, that wasn't last summer. That was just this winter, wasn't it?
Yeah, just January. Yeah, we went to Guatemala for the whole month and just kind of, you know, said we want them to have that kind of worldview that for us, like, this isn't an entertainment thing. It's just a way that we're going to reach people who maybe normally wouldn't cross the street to go to church. But now they're going to come see me cut my wife in half because that's exciting. But
exactly.
In the process, we're really there to minister and to share, and you know, kind of fun to see where the kids have their kind of giftings and desires and get them out in front of people or behind the scenes, whatever they want to do, and let them be used as well. So yeah, it was really cool.
I think I love you and Teesha's heart for kids and ministry and this children's ministry community. You're just such an amazing gift. I think one reason I really love magic tricks or gospel illusions is because I think, you know, it's something how kids will remember that and how you can connect those truths or those tricks to some kind of a truth that will stick.
Yes.
David, let me ask you this. The average children's ministry leader out there, the average children's pastor that would not consider themselves a ventriloquist, a professional magician. I already know how you're going to answer this question, but talk to us about this. Are magic tricks or gospel illusions something that anybody can use, or does it require training? Talk to us about that.
Well, you have both sides of it, right? I mean, I think for the most part, I feel confident that, like, when we do trainings for kids pastors and things like that, I have a thing coming up we can talk about in a little bit where it's just totally free, but kind of introducing them to here's how we use gospel illusions. I always start with super basic things that once they see it, it's like you realize it's not hard to do the trick, but just like any message we communicate, really the thought and the preparation needs to go in the actual message. And so for most of the tricks, it's the same way. A lot of them are self-working, so to speak. So they're really easy to use. We typically call them illusions. It doesn't offend me if people say magic. I just want people to know it's just a trick, just an illusion. So we always just kind of clarify that.
Yeah.
But yeah, most kids pastors, in fact, we could do a fun thing here and you'll see, yeah, that's pretty simple. Anybody can do that. But yeah, and then,
let's do it.
Well, you can graduate from there and you can do more difficult things.
Okay.
But here's a simple, fun little thing. You know, we all are kind of wondering how long we're going to be quarantined. And we wish that maybe we could predict the future. Well, Ryan, I've been working on that, and I have
Ooh.
an idea that I could maybe predict the future for just a moment here. So I have an envelope right here.
Yep.
And, inside, super exciting. I have a couple of things, a few pieces of paper. Now these paper, of course, they are numbered. We have number 1, number 2, and 3. So Ryan, these guys are going to have to trust us. This wasn't prepared in any way. Okay. But could you go ahead and name a number, 1, 2, or 3?
Number 2.
2.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yes.
You want to change your mind?
2. Let's stick with 2.
2. Okay, that's incredible because you chose 2. Now you are not going to believe this, Ryan, but before we began, I told you I was going to try to read your mind or predict the future. I wrote a prediction right on the back. It says you will choose 2. Isn't that incredible?
Good one. But
it's amazing.
I bet they each say something on the back.
I mean, sometimes that's what people think. But here's the thing. You did not choose 3, and that's good because it does not say you will choose 3. You did not choose 1, and that's good because it doesn't say you will choose 1. You had your free choice. You chose 2, and it says you will choose 2.
Nice.
Now, usually, of course, I would say, can I really predict the future? Of course not. But you know what? Did you know that God does know what's going to happen? In fact, he knows the plans he has for you. Jeremiah 29:11 says, I know the plans I have for you to prosper you, not to harm you. Or we can use that to say, even though I can't predict the future, I can know for sure that one day I'll spend eternity with Jesus in heaven if I've made the decision to follow him. And just, I'm gonna teach you this real quick. So you guys that are wondering, can I do these things? Pretty easy to do. So
is this something you could make at home?
Absolutely. So okay. This is like the things I love to teach because for kids pastors, because I know you all have an unlimited budget, but every now and then you just want to make things, right? But you can make some fun things. Okay, obviously we're just kidding, but if you just have some paper around the office, you can do this. So we'll do it one more time, Ryan. Let's say you chose 3. In that situation, I say, you know what, Ryan, that's really amazing because before we began, I wrote a prediction down right under here. It says you will choose 3.
Nice.
People are thinking I wrote a prediction here, but it doesn't say you will choose 1. Underneath this one, it doesn't say you will choose 2. Of course, it says you will choose 3. But of course, what happens if they don't choose 2 or 3? What happens if they choose 1? Well, in that situation, I say, you know what? Before we began, I told you I had some interesting things inside this envelope. The most interesting thing is the prediction that I made before we began. You look inside, there's just one piece of paper. That piece of paper says you will choose 1.
Love it.
So there you go. So any kids pastor can probably do this. All you have to do is have a piece of paper inside your envelope that says you will choose 1. I just used some cardstock, construction paper, print it out or write a number on it underneath the flap.
Is it just black duct tape or black masking tape?
This is actually black gaff tape. So
okay.
Your media people will know about that. You can use duct tape.
That gaff tape's like $82 a roll, isn't it?
Right. I mean, it's pretty expensive, but
I think I'll use duct tape.
Yeah, go with duct tape. Yeah. So,
David, this is totally random. And I love that because David's showing you don't have to break the bank and buy all these nice magic tricks. You can, or illusion. But there's also stuff you can do with just everyday household items like paper and a manila envelope.
Yes.
What's one of the biggest, looking back on your ministry, one of the biggest oops, like on stage, whether it was in front of kids or a stadium full of adults, or like a trick gone bad, or can you think of an oops?
Yeah, well, I'm sure there's been plenty of them. The one that kind of comes to mind, we do different types of events, right? So sometimes the church will say, hey, we just, they might have just me come in with a small suitcase and a few things like that, do our best to make it play really big. But we also do big illusions, like what you would see, typically on a Las Vegas stage where my wife gets cut in half and all these kind of things. Yep. So in one of those events, which is, a big, long 90-minute to 2-hour program with an intermission, the last trick of the first half is this big escape where Teesha gets handcuffed and tied in a bag and locked in
that trick. Yeah,
and everybody examines it and checks it out. Well, then what happens is real quickly, I stand on top of this thing.
Yeah.
And instantaneously we change places. Well, in the course of doing this, I actually was, it's a more physically taxing thing than people might think. And I was inside, like trying to get everything together, and I hit my head against the wooden crate.
No.
And so when I come out of the box, I had this huge bump on my head, just this massive bump. And so everyone in the audience can see it. And not only that, you know, you kind of got to like pretend it's not there, but I had to go back for intermission, come out in the second half and do the entire second half of the program with this big old thing on my head.
No.
Because it was basically this escape gone wrong. So.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That had to hurt too.
Oh man, it hurt. There was also a time I was, you know, doing this cutting in half with my wife, and I accidentally really did cut her.
No.
And draw blood. Well, yeah, because we try to do things like, you know, fast and efficient and those kind of things. And so I just scraped her when I shouldn't have.
How did you realize you did it?
Oh, right away I realized it. And it was one of those things where, you know, the trick still worked, you know, so to speak. But right away I knew something, and I could see she was even bleeding. And it was one of those things where your wife looks at you and you know that she knows that you know, and you're just like,
oh my gosh.
I took it out. I mean, that's all you can do.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So we've had some fun things like that.
Have you done this long enough? Have you pretty much like, can you watch magicians on TV, or if you go to Branson or wherever, and do you pretty much, can you figure out this is how they did this? You know enough about how this stuff works?
You know, I'd say.
Or do you still get stumped?
Yeah, yes and no. I mean, the great thing is there's been so many magic tricks, illusions on TV that it's meant like we're creating more things all the time. And so you'll see a combination of like, yeah, I know how that works, but then you'll also see something new that you don't understand. Or sometimes, you know, I showed you a thing that anybody can do and make with, you know, little or no skill.
Yeah.
But there are some things that take incredible, you know, it's 3 years of your life to make something look magical, so to speak. Yeah. And so when you see those things, I may or may not know how they do, but no matter what, I can appreciate, man, that took a ton of time. You know, it's the equivalent of somebody watching a juggler juggle 10 pins. You're like, wow. So yeah, yes and no. I can figure out most of it. Definitely not all of it.
Love it. Now, David, you talked about, in our last 5 minutes here, you talked about how you and Teesha do events for churches and ministries, school outreaches, and so on. Talk to us about that. I'm sure that this whole pandemic nobody's really doing events right now. Nobody's even going to church, but are you scheduling ahead? What kind of events do you do? Maybe there's some children's pastors looking ahead toward the next 12 months.
Absolutely.
How can you serve them?
Yeah, even, you know, we still have a few things like in the months ahead, and then many things have pushed back to later in the summer or fall. And kind of the cool thing is like we went into churches and done like 8 program shows in a day where you're just cycling people through. So even when we're like gradually getting people back and maybe having to do more services, that works. But for the most part, typically what we do, our website is davidandteesha.com. It's all spelled out, DAVIDANDTEESHA.com. Maybe we can put that in the chat or something like that.
Yeah, Andy will drop that in. Andy, if you'll drop that in.
Yeah, so basically we go into churches, we give them a full kind of promotion plan that they can either, if we're going to be like VBS closing, then probably they're just communicating that within the Vacation Bible School. Sometimes we even come for the full 4 or 5 days and do the main teaching, but or sometimes it's just a big outreach event. So we help churches know like how to communicate, how to promote, how to get people there that normally wouldn't come to church. But it's not just the program. If you go on our site, you can see like we actually present the gospel through the illusions and kind of lead people into those things in terms of making a decision. It's very much outreach driven. And, you know, we'll do volunteer appreciation events and things like that. But even in quarantine, we've been doing several online things. I mean, it's amazing.
Have you? Okay.
People, yeah, they just desire that human interaction. So we've done another number of things where a church's Facebook group or a Zoom thing like this, where we make it interactive. I let people just like you know, hey, pick a number and make it as interactive as possible. So yeah, we're even doing that in the short term. And then the other thing, if you go to kidminevents.com, we do have a couple webinars we're going to be doing. The first one, totally free, is just like the trick that I showed you. It's all tricks that you can make. That'll kind of forward you to where you can sign up for that webinar. But it's all things for kids pastors, totally free. This is just stuff that you can make. These illusions. A couple webinars we're going to be doing. The first one.
Where are we getting this feedback from?
Just like the trick that I showed you. It's all.
Are you hearing that feedback? Was that you?
I don't think it's me. I didn't change anything.
Hey, Okay, so I was trying to share my screen here for everybody. Here it is. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen quick. Go to kidminevents.com. I thought I had every kidminwhatever.com. How did you get kidminevents.com?
You know what? What's funny, Ryan, is they give you these huge long webinar links, and I just went and saw like, what domains do I have? And that's one I must have grabbed years ago, but there it is.
I do the same thing. I think I've got kidminclass.com that I'll forward to it. But you're right, because they're so long.
Yeah.
So look at this, guys and girls. Awesome object lessons you can make. This is happening in 2 days.
Yeah, this one's in a couple days. I know there's still some slots open for that one. It does fill up. So totally free. You just have to register and you get the links and all that good stuff.
Yeah, love it. Also keep in mind, Kidmin, about using David and Teesha for an in-person or on-site event. But also, I love what David said in the meantime. Hey, if you're ramping up or you're doing some volunteer Zoom meetings or trainings, David just offered, he is helping churches, and he could discuss that with you, jumping on your next big Zoom
even
thing.
A lot of what we're doing is things that we're planning ahead. So some of the vacation Bible schools I was going to be a part of, or family events, we're instead doing just some online things that they can insert into their online VBS. But some things that we're doing even in the fall, we're also doing a live thing right now to kind of get people excited to come back and see people get cut in half, and more than just the the little ball trick, that kind of thing. So, all those kind of things. Yeah. That's
a neat trick.
Yeah, I'm glad you like it.
Okay. David, would you wrap us up? Would you just give a word of encouragement to somebody who's online? Maybe they're new in children's ministry, they're feeling a little overwhelmed, or someone that's been doing this a long time and they're tired, or maybe there's some tension at the church right now, a lot of uncertainty. Maybe it's something going on with their kids. Would you just speak a word of encouragement or blessing?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the biggest thing is, you and I were talking about how long we've been doing these kind of things. And I know we've both been on staff at a church. We've had great moments in those situations, tough moments. And so I think that's the biggest thing is, especially we can go on and see everybody post all the great things that happen, but all of us have been through those tough things. And one of the things I think, like even in this moment, is you probably are reaching people that you have no idea, through the things you might be doing online, the resources you're sharing with people. And even though it's super tough, I think in the long term, it's a chance for the gospel to go forward even further and farther and faster than we had imagined. And so that's ultimately what I would say is just keep going and keep praying. And the other thing is, don't expect your ministry to look the same as everybody else's. That's just the easiest thing for us to get caught up in, is saying, what, I need to do more illusions. Well, maybe it's not your thing, or I need to do what somebody else is doing, or I need to be at a bigger church, or I need to be at a smaller church where I can interact more, whatever it might be, just to embrace where God has you, but also keep seeking what's next.
Yeah.
When we went to Guatemala with our kids, that was one of the big things, is we realized when we started in ministry, it was super tough. When we got out of my in-laws' basement, we lived in a house that we paid $300 a month rent, and we didn't know how we were going to make those payments most months.
Yep.
Slowly, as things grow, you start kind of saying, you live with less faith. You're like, oh, this is going to work. And we kind of realized that's not how we want our life to be, is a life without faith. But instead, even revisiting with our kids, like, let's take our 4-year-old daughter with us to Guatemala.
Exactly.
Like, what's that going to look like? But part of that journey of faith is there's always that little bit of kind of tension and uncomfort. If we're too comfortable, if we don't feel that, then I mean, that's the thing, is maybe we're not fully saying, God, what else should I be doing, if we're just purely living in that groove of comfort? I don't think that's where we're called to be all the time.
Amen. Good stuff. Thank you, David. We had a question come in on Facebook. I'm going to share my screen again. Here are my girls yesterday at the David and Teesha had an online magic camp, and there's a question on Facebook. Are you doing any more magic camps?
Oh, I'm glad somebody asked about that. Brian, this is a great thing. So we have 2 this week, and they're both sold out. Thankfully, it's so fun to see your girls being a part of that.
They had a great time. Yesterday was the first day, David. They loved it.
That's awesome.
They loved it.
So next week, we have one that happens at 3:00 Eastern time. And so there are a few openings for that. But what's really cool is the second one that we had, a church bought the whole thing.
No.
So the coolest thing, they're just like, you know what, we're going to do this for basically our church leaders whose kids often don't get to win the prize, don't get to be the volunteers.
Yeah.
And so this church said, we want to do this and just kind of buy the whole group for our, all these church leaders and their kids get a chance to, like, this is something just for their kids. So right now we have one left. Next week they can find it on a totally different site, a third website for you, LaflinMagicStore.com.
Okay.
But they can find that one next week and sign up for that. If people want to still be a part of it, we've thought about, let's do some more in June. I know that right now parents are very overwhelmed. So this is kind of something that you can just put your kids, like, hey, here's your magic set, and they're learning, they're doing, and it's us giving the instructions and parents not having to, like, figure out how to do that.
And I thought it was cool, David.
We'd love to have you guys join us. Or one more thing.
So that's LaflinMagicStore.com.
Laflin Magic Store. You can also see, though we have the You Can Make stuff, but we have tons of resources that, for kids pastors to use. If you say, hey, I love this, it's a fun part of my ministry, then you can use, you'll see some of the other props and lessons that we've used.
I love it. And I love one thing, sorry. One thing that you did, trying to find a video, that I thought was really cool, was you yesterday with the class. It's not one of these things where there's 200 kids on there. Like, you talk to the kids, you let them ask questions. You kept it kind of small, didn't you?
Right. Yeah. So we intentionally have it where our thought was we have no more than 16 people calling in, because we want every day, like as today, we get on that second call and they practice what they did yesterday. We want every kid to have a chance to ask a question if they want. Yeah. We want every kid to have a chance. We're going to have a little online recital at the end.
I love that.
Perform and do their thing. And so we do want it to be not just I guess like a webinar where you can only watch and not interact typically, but really this is hands-on. You can ask questions, tell us how we can help you. You get a chance to demonstrate for the whole class what you've been learning. So yeah, super fun.
Love it. Lord, I thank you for David and Teesha. Thank you for their family. Thank you for the ministry that you've given to them, for the thousands of churches, and I'm sure tens and hundreds of thousands of kids and families that have been reached because of their response to the call that you placed on their life. I pray that you bless all that they do. Lord, I pray that you would meet their needs during this pandemic. I pray that you would fill their schedule as everybody comes back. Lord, I pray that you would give them opportunities to even expand their ministry greater in the months and the years to come. I thank you for their heart for kids, their passion for the gospel. Thank you for David and Teesha's humility. Lord, I pray just a special anointing and blessing upon this family and upon their ministry. Thank you for their desire to serve you first and foremost, and to give you the honor and glory. In Christ's name, amen. Amen. David, thank you for being with us.
Yeah, Ryan.
Tell Teesha and the kids I said hi, and I can't wait to sit in the background here in a couple hours for day 2 of gospel.
You can stay out of the room so the girls can fool you. You're in there.
You know what? They were mad. I popped in when you were doing the trick where you can the dice in the tube. Yes. I got bounced quick. They did not want me in the room.
Right. That's right.
All right. Love you, David. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Ryan. Appreciate it.
Yep. All right. Wow. What a great coffee chat. This has been so fun. I hope that this has sparked some creativity for you. Think through your next Zoom, your next pre-recorded service, and what can I do to bring that lesson to life? What kind of an illusion can I make? David and Teesha have a lot of resources, videos at kidsmatter.com. If you go to teaching videos, they have he's got like 10 or 20 videos where he teaches you how to do illusions. Go to kidminevents.com, this free webinar he has coming up, and let them know if they can serve you in your ministry anyway. Hope that you enjoyed this conversation with a dear friend, David Lafin. Thanks, friends, for joining me for today's coffee chat. If you have any questions, any topics you want to discuss, any guests you think that we need to bring in, please text it to the number right there. And I would love to hear from you. Kidmin, have an awesome day. Keep making a difference, and we'll see you tomorrow.